welcome to the Thunder. Hopefully you heard that lightning bolt.
I did.
And we've got, as you can see, Mr. Thomas Schooley.
I blame our school.
And Johnny Vegas.
Look at this guy. Classy fella.
And of course, I'm back from the desert. They call me Shooter.
Wow, that's a nice shooter.
Oh, thank you. All right. We the Thunder pregame show. We don't do too many of these pregame shows. I think in the history of the show, we have like under probably 5 of these pregame shows, but they're always the best shows as we're waiting usually for these late night West Coast games. So we've got a couple games to talk about. We're on a 4-game winning streak. And the question I have for you guys to kick this show off, and for the audience out there, as you guys are waiting up with us for the 10:30 Sharks versus Lightning game, is how the heck did the Bolts catch fire like this? And I'll throw a couple things out there. There's a couple different things. Maybe it's just a combination of all of these things.
One word. Duclair.
Thank you.
You're putting on one person. So he's on my
Duclair.
list. He's on my list. Duclair, 4 games with the Bolts, 3 goals, 2 assists in those games. But you also have to take into consideration power play, still number 1 by a couple of percentage points.
Yep.
The penalty kill this month is 19 for 20. The penalty kill is on fire, so that's a top 10 penalty kill now. You got Braden Point with 21 goals. His number's 21. I don't know if you guys know that. This calendar year. So all of a sudden, Braden Point, who was pretty quiet the first half of the year, is on fire right now. Had the at-home hat trick. Of course, I was out of town for the hat trick, finally at home, that we've been talking about all freaking season. But yeah, 21 points this calendar year. And then here's a shocker for you. Stamkos in February. You know how many points Stamkos had?
4. Yeah.
4 points in February. In March, he's already got 11. So he had 4 points in that Florida game. So Stamkos turning it around. Or is it Vasi? Is it Vasi, who we saw in the Florida game, really take over? You guys are saying Duclair? What's the chat saying?
I'm taking something from what Eric Harrelson said after the game the other night. I don't know if it was the Vegas one or the game before that, but he said the addition of Duclair not only adds a solid top 6 now, because he's definitely a top 6, but it slots all the other guys to where they probably should have been playing, where there wasn't all this jumbling going around. And you've pretty much seen Cooper now stick to where these guys are playing. And Eric Harrelson, who we've had on the show several times, I thought nailed it on the head when he says that not only has Duclair brought the speed, he's also brought the veteran. He's also brought someone that the other teams have to take notice to and have to try to guard. And something Matt Shapiro brought up last week was his net front presence is amazing. He loves blocking that goalie out, and he's there for a rebound. He got the goal the other night on a rebound. But he does slot the other players to where they should be, whether it's the left wing, the right wing, the center, and which lines they belong on. And that's what brought in a top 6. Everybody was yelling at the trade deadline, defense. And yeah, I think Dumba has done all right and has really filled in shoes over there. But the story of the trade deadline right now is Duclair, because of the fact that they brought in that top 6 forward, and it has slotted everybody else.
Right. And he also has a knack for finding the open ice. Like, he'll pull away from the defender. I don't know if the goal he had the other night, he slapped it out of the air. He pulled away from the defender, went to the open ice. And to touch on Dumba, what he brings is kind of invisible. They know he's going to make a hit, and he's going to look for that big hit. And there's been a lot of bad passes and turnovers from the opposite, especially in that Florida game, from the Panther players because he was looking for the hit, and we turned it around and we went up ice. It happened.
Yeah, Dumba's going to bring that fear, and people's
Yeah.
going to know where he is at all times on the ice.
Yeah,
but
he's creating turnovers just because he's there, and they know he's going to make that big crazy hit.
Yeah, he's not
looking
afraid.
for that hit.
He's not afraid to be that guy.
That's a thing we have not had in a while.
Yeah, I think the other thing with Dumba is, all right, so we got him from Arizona, which is not a very good team, right? And he was playing 20 minutes a night, and now he is playing on our third defensive line. So he's not playing that 20 minutes a night. And I think for him, it's maybe a little bit of exactly what he needed, right? Like, let me just focus on playing 10, 12 minutes a night and playing really well in that 10, 12 minutes as best as I can. So for him, I think this is the best situation he could have had, because in Arizona playing 20 plus minutes a night on a really bad team, no one's stats are going to look that good. So for him to come to a good team and be able to get a little bit of a break and play with some really good forwards too, I think has been a game changer. But you guys are right. I mean, Duclair is, I said bottom 6 forward. I think in the chat here, Stephanie said, yeah, can you recall a player coming to a team and going right to the top line? Yeah, they put him right up there with Cooch and Point. He'll probably be playing with them again tonight.
We did at the end of last show, we did say he would end up on the second line. I didn't think it would be in the first game, but he did, and he's put up points every game.
Yeah, I was the one out of the three of us that gave the trades the best grade. And let me see how good I can pat myself on the back, because I have loved this trade. I love this offseason. I put it out there and people were yelling at me about, I said, to me, this was the best impact trade that JBB has made in a long time. Last time I could think of was really the McDonough-Miller trade, because Mac really did instant here. And people were like, well, what about Hagel and Paul? Their first 4 games, they didn't do as much impact as Duclair has. I remember last year doing this show with you, Shooter, shortly after trades for Hagel and Paul, or 2 years ago, for Hagel and Paul. And we were saying, oh, we got to give them time, just like we did with Coleman and Gaudreau. You got to give them time. You got to give them time to acclimate to the new team, to the new lines. I mean, Duclair has came in and just lit a fire on this team. And I love it. And you hear from the other players that this addition has made them. And something else I was listening to on the radio the other day, they talked about there was a spark when we had all the rookies coming in this year, all the young guys coming in. And then it was kind of like, you guys held us until we got Duclair, until we got Dumba. Now that spark is, again, a new spark. And look, four-game winning streak right now.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be huge going into the playoffs. Like, we control our own destiny at this point, right? Like, let's just not screw this up. Let's get in the playoffs, and then we're going to be the scary team to play. We're going to be the team that people don't want to play going in the playoffs, hopefully, if we can continue this kind of hot streak that we're on. But here's what I really like about it. We actually have some depth now, right? Which we definitely needed. You have to have the 3-4 lines, which, isn't enough to win a Stanley Cup. We'll see, right? But we weren't deep enough before to win a Stanley Cup. I think everyone on this call and hopefully everyone watching knows that, right? But now, funny, just adding 2 players, we do have that. And what I do like about what we did this season is we did have so many of these guys coming up and down, getting enough experience playing with these guys here that if we lose somebody due to injury, which is, probably going to happen during the playoffs or before the playoffs, we do have guys that can step in that have played with the current roster. And of course, they know the system because they're in our system. But
do we forget we have a defenseman that is going to be healthy just in time for the playoffs? Sure. That's making quite a bit of money and itching to get back on that ice and start playing again, by the name of Mikhail Sergachev.
Oh, he's not coming back, though.
He is.
No, I don't think there's any chance he's coming back this season.
Oh, I think so. Did you see?
I saw him skating. Oh, we all saw him skating.
Did you see the report from, I want to say it was Gabby Shirley today, that they say don't look for him returning soon, but he's definitely progressing really good.
I know, but I don't think that injury you come back from that fast. You're just asking to get injured again. I think they rest him. He's our number one defenseman, or we need him to be our number one defenseman moving forward. As you know, not to get into the weeds of contracts and all that, but next year's, Hedman's the new Stamkos next year, right? With his last year of the contract. So we'll see what happens with that.
This question kind of leads into what I wanted to ask you guys that I had put out on Facebook this week that me and Matt had talked about last week. Do you guys feel like that this team could be the Florida team of last year, just get in and make a deep run? So my question to you two is, what would be a successful season this year for your guys' liking? What would you consider it to be a successful season? And what do you think the players feel like it would be for a successful season?
Go ahead, Vegas.
The players are going to want to get to the cup, right? That's their goal. So to be successful as a player, they want to get to the cup finals and hopefully win it. As a fan, as somebody who loves the Lightning, given what took place last year, I would like to just compete, not get blown out, not get moved on like it was so simple. And I do think that adding these two pieces, and Vasi has looked really good. We beat 3 really good teams in a row in, New York, Florida, and Vegas, and he played out of his mind. And
in Philly before that, Philly's playoff team.
And I didn't say Philly because they lost their coach that game. That was kind of they're on a cusp, and they're not as good as those other 3 teams, especially with what they added at the trade deadline, those 3 teams. I would just like to get in there and compete. And if we lose, we lose, but I want it to be competitive. I don't feel like in that.
So is the playoffs successful for you, or first round, second round?
I would like to get to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay, that would be successful for you to lose in the Eastern Conference,
considering what happened last season. Yes.
What about you, Shooter?
There's only one answer to this. It's Stanley Cup or nothing else. Come on.
For me, I would say this was a success with everything that this team has gone through, going to the second round. Mm-hmm. For the team, I think it's Stanley Cup or nothing. I don't think the team is happy unless they go to the Stanley Cup. For me, I would be happy to make it into the second round after last year's first year around all the issues we've had. I think that would be considered a winning season getting into the second round.
Hold on, Mike Douglas is in the chat here. Is Ruda playing tonight? That's what we need to know.
No, yeah, I think so.
I would assume he is. By the way, San Jose Sharks are playing tonight at 10:30 in about an hour and 10 minutes. And currently, they are the worst team in the NHL. Is this a trap game? Are we going to lose this game tonight?
No.
No, I mean, we only have one ex-player. It's Ruda, so he'll score against us, and that's it.
Oh, I know. That freaking Vegas game, of course, the first 2 guys, March Assault scores, seemed like 30 seconds in the game. I know it wasn't quite that, but
and
Howden afterwards.
Yeah.
Howden, who he missed extended time, hasn't scored that much. So yeah, of course he scores. But yeah, if you've got your Hard Rock app open right now, you better put some money on Bruda to score his 3rd goal of the season. It's happening tonight. You can probably bet $1 that he's going to score that goal tonight, and you'll win like 100. So there you go. There's your Shootey betting tip of the week. Where's Hard Rock? Give us a call. Well,
I have Dumba. Dumba's going to get his first point tonight with the Lightning.
Oh, well, hey, hold on, because for pregame shows, we do predictions. So we will be doing predictions before the end of this show. Don't worry. We do that around here.
Okay. Apparently Mike is drinking. Ruda with the
Hattie
Hattie confirmed.
Oh boy. Well, I don't think you might
Somebody
be on your
else's hat.
own.
He's going to pick
predicting
up
that
somebody
one,
else's
Mike.
hat off the ice, right?
All right. So who wants to hear about me and my new best friend? Number 4. These guys, you guys, well, I guess Schoolie, you didn't get the whole story, but I think I told John pretty much the whole story the day after. So
I'm sure Vinny's version's a little different, but go ahead.
Well, hey, listen, he might be watching. He might be watching this show tonight because I told him about the podcast. you know I did. All right. So here's what happened. I met Vinny Lecavalier just randomly last Saturday. I came back from out west on Saturday and I left Phoenix. It was like early flight, right? I wake up at 4 a.m. I'd been there a week, so I'm adjusted to West Coast time. So I come back here. We get back at like 1:30. I have enough time to come home, get Oreo. If you don't know who Oreo is, you better follow me on Instagram. That's my best friend. And like have enough time to like just relax for like an hour or two because we have tickets for Tom Segura at Amalie, which somehow that guy's raking in money because he sold out Amalie Arena. But we go downtown. I try to leave early, but I'm super tired. And downtown is just a nightmare again because it's one of those days. And we have these like days, probably 5 days out of the year in Tampa, where it's a mess because there's so much going on. You got the St. Patrick's Day parade, which is going on like right as we're cruising into town. So half the streets are shut down. I guess there was some volleyball tournament, some other conference. You got the Tom Segura thing. Everyone's downtown on Saturday. So we're going on Water Street, bar to bar, just trying to find a spot at the bar where me and Carly can sit and grab something to eat, grab a drink before the show. Everywhere's packed. So I'm like, you know where we'll go? JW Marriott. That place is going to be expensive as hell. Nobody's going to be there. So, of course, we get down there. And it's still packed, but I see these two guys get up as soon as I walk in. So I beeline right to the seats that they just left from, knowing like, hey, this is our chance to, at least grab a $20 drink before we go into the stadium to get $20 drinks. And I sit down and, start to look around, and I look at the guy next to me and I say to Carly, I'm like, you recognize that guy, right? And she says, that's my favorite hockey player, which, by the way, until this moment, I thought I was her favorite hockey player. At least that's what she's always said. But in that moment where Vinny Lecavalier is sitting to the right of me, and she's on the other side, by the way, Vinny Lecavalier was apparently her favorite player. He overhears us. He's sitting right next to us at the bar and says, well, I don't know about that anymore. And I'm like, well, you can play on my beer league team anytime, bud. And then he starts to ask, like, where I play and stuff. Dude, this is like the nicest guy I've met in the last 5 years in Tampa. No offense to you guys. I met you guys in the last 5 years too. But like, seriously, had a full-on conversation with him for probably like 20-30 minutes of him talk. I asked him if he's still working for the Canadians, and he started to tell me a little bit about what he's doing with them. We started to talk about some of the games, the recent games. We talked about the comedy show that I was going to, because I asked him, I was like, so are you going to the show? He's like, no, I'm waiting for someone. He was there by himself. So he's a little bit chatty, actually. And here's what really pissed me off. We grabbed the picture, so you saw it on our on my Instagram and on Twitter. But I thought the show that we were going to started at 7. We get in there, and I'm like, wow, no one's here yet. And the show started at 8. So I literally could have stayed there with my guy Vinny for an extra hour.
Well, I would have missed Tom Segura for Vinny.
I should have relooked at my ticket.
I could watch Netflix for some Tom Segura.
So he was a super nice guy. It sounded like he didn't want to say scouting, but it sounded like he's kind of doing some scouting.
Yeah, he's a scout. He's a scouter from Montreal.
Yeah, he's saying he builds these like player profiles for them. I told him about the podcast. Luckily, I had in my little phone wallet one of our cards. So I slipped in the card, and I didn't ask him. This is where I messed up. I didn't ask him to come on the show, but I was like, hey, I do this podcast. It's all, we're fans. It's all about the fans. And I was like, we've had former players on. We had Dinger on. He's like, no kidding. So I was trying to like hit my way at it, but didn't want to straight up ask him to go on the show because he works for the Canadians still. So maybe a conflict of interest. But I dropped him. To We the Thunder.
He is the nicest. I'd say the nicest ex-Bolt that I can think of, because I've had the opportunity to meet him probably 24 times, and he's always been the same kind of person. Always been super nice, willing to talk with the fans, will talk anything about the fans, and just great with people. I remember a couple years ago last year when we did the Hall of Fame ceremony for Espo, him and Marty. I was with my friend Ginger, which Shooter, and many people know her. She's a tall girl, and she's eye level with Vinny, and Vinny looks up to say hi to her, and then realizes they're the same height, and so they start making comments about how they're the same height, and I was like, look, someone you don't have to look down to, Vinny, and he's got to laugh at it. He's always been a great guy. You can see him back in the day. You used to be able to see him rollerblading with his kids around Davis Island. He also was coaching his son's hockey team out of Wesley Chapel. And so, he stayed in this area. He's always been great. He's a great ambassador. I really wish the Lightning could get him as part of their staff. But he's always been a great person for the city of Tampa.
Yeah. Well, he likes his role. He's like, I was talking to him. It's like, so you just get to work from home? He's like, yeah. Like, sometimes I go on business trips and look at some players, but yeah. And me, Thomas, I'm not a big, I've never met or had pictures or autographs with any of the current players. So but when I was sitting there, I was talking to him for a while. I was like, all right, do you mind if I take a picture? He wasn't there with anyone. He wasn't eating or anything. He was just having a drink at the bar. But anyway, me and Vinny like this right now. So Vinny, if you're watching, on that card, you can scan it and you can contact me if you want to go have another drink sometime.
And he'll pay for it. Shooter will buy those $20
drinks. Does he still
live
in Tampa? Or does he still live in Tampa? Or is he
Yeah, he does.
He was asking where I played. I was almost gonna see if he wanted to come play for me or not play for me, but sub for my team on Sunday. In fact, I sent that picture to my Sunday team, and I was like, "Hey, I got us a new sub."
Maybe you can convince him to do one of those celebrity shinnies and play on his team. Those are pretty fun.
I'll work on that. We'll see. We'll see if the relationship progresses. But I think for right now, until I randomly run into him again, it's over. But anyway, really cool experience, and really, really nice guy. It was just so crazy because I literally sat down next to the guy without even realizing who it was. I was 3 hours ahead, or I guess behind, because of the time change, and I was super tired because we had that early flight and was trying to just stay up to go to the show. Anyway, Vinny Lecavier, good guy, and number 4 will never be worn again here in Tampa, at least for the Lightning.
Yeah, no, great guy. Right? I like this. Trust me, if anybody knows how to get Andre Wall on the show, I love to get Andre Wall on the show.
I told you I've had conversations with him. He's in my DMs on Instagram, but I just can't get that guy nailed down. He's too busy.
I don't know if you saw the clip I posted today of an interview he had done previously on a podcast where he rips Torts and basically how he got basically kicked off the team. I came across it today, and it was a real good thing. And if you actually watch the whole interview, it's a great interview with Wall, and I love him. I love his passion for the game and just his energy.
I think the key is we need more followers. So if you can go follow us on whatever, that will help. Because I know we have a good community of followers here, hardcore Bolts fans, but put us on the map, and then some of these guys will, be super eager to join us. But we've had some pretty dang good guests on this show. So, all right, enough about us. What else were we going to talk about tonight? What about these GM proposed changes? So, last week, what happened, and this happens once a year, is the GMs of the league get together. This happened in Florida last week. I think they changed the location probably every year. And the league officials get together. And what happens is the GMs kind of get into little breakout rooms and they suggest ideas on proposed rules. So we've got some new proposed rules for the next season. This does not mean that these are going to happen. That means that they propose these to the actual league officials, and then the league will decide probably sometime in the offseason if they are going to actually implement these rules. So I'm going to lay out the rules for you guys. Tell me if they are a yay or nay. And I'm not just talking to John or Schooley. I'm talking to everyone out there in the chat as well. So, all right, first one here is probably the most interesting one. The GMs are seeking an expansion of the coach's challenge to include a video review of puck over the glass calls. If the team believes a puck has been deflected out of play, this would apply only if the penalty was called, not if the coach thinks a call has been missed. So basically, if a referee calls a delay of game because the puck goes over the glass without touching anything, and the coach thinks that, hey, that is, you're wrong, then the coach can challenge that next season. If the coach's challenge is unsuccessful, it will result in a 5-on-3, though, because you're already going to get the delay of game penalty. So that's your power play. Now you've challenged it and you lost the challenge. So now it's going to be a 5-on-3 situation. What do we think about this?
Stupid.
It's stupid.
I mean, just leave it as it is, where there's no challenge, and let it be the power play.
I mean, we have Nigel. Other teams don't, so we may not have to face the 5-on-3. But
everyone's got at least a couple video. Like, we got a couple video coaches now, but I think every team's got.
I think it's just stupid because you're basically, it's just like that goalie rule that we saw used in overtime a couple weeks ago, where you pull your goalie in overtime for a fourth one, but what is it? If you pull a goalie and you don't, what was the rule? It's really stupid.
I know the game you were talking about, but I don't know the rule.
Yeah, there's some kind of repercussions. Oh, you don't get the 1 point if you end up losing the game. You don't get the 1 point, the tie point. Instead, you get 0 points.
That's the rule that needs to change.
But I think you're basically just deterring anybody from making that challenge anyway by doing it 5-on-3. So why even put that in? I mean,
I agree with Stephanie. Get
rid
of the rule in general.
But you can't get rid of that rule though, John, because then anytime I'm in trouble, I'm just flipping that puck over the board. You're going to have so many stoppages. Every defensive player that gets in trouble, they're just going to rocket that thing off the or outside of the rink, whether it's the netting or not the netting, which is a danger to the fans.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to get away from it, but this is a bold thing. So here's kind of part 2 of that. The same would apply for proposed high sticking challenges, where a coach can call for a review if the team believes a player has been high sticked by their own teammate and not an opponent. By the way, both of these scenarios we've seen for the Lightning have been called incorrectly
in the last couple weeks.
It's not just because these guys all got together and decided, hey, this isn't working. There's actual stats behind, these calls have been missed this season and in the past. So this is why we want to do that. So what about the high sticking variety?
Is there a penalty if you're wrong?
Yes. That also becomes a 5-on-3 also.
I don't like that. If you're wrong, you get penalized because you question human element. Like
I don't
like
know.
that.
I don't know if you got the same one I have, Shooter, but the way I have it that reads, it says changes to the coach's challenge. High stick and penalties can be revised if they are double minor or major penalties. Delay of game for puck over the glass can now be challenged to make sure it didn't deflect off of anything. If coaches are wrong, however, they will be given the original penalty as well as another for the failed challenge, resulting in a 5-on-3 for the opponent. So even on the high sticking one, it would then go to a 5-on-3 also.
Yep. So the reason why I think these could be approved is because the NHL seems to lean in the favor of anything that's going to promote more scoring. They're going to do so. 5-on-3.
I like the high sticking one. I would love to review some of these high stickings and see how wrong the refs are.
Yeah, mine. The article I read said only if they're high sticked by their own teammate and not an opponent. So that's kind of a really strange challenge. Like, what if it's one of these phantom high sticks, which we've been benefited from, and we've also been on the other side of, where it's just like the player has that jerks the head back and they didn't really get touched at all.
Yeah,
like that's not going to be reviewable. It's only if it's like your teammate's stick by accident. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if those get approved. So other changes that we've got is adding the goalie to the list of players who can be penalized when the net is dislodged. I do like this because I feel like goalies at all levels take advantage. And John, you can comment on this of kicking that net off the moorings. Yeah. So if a player does, I didn't even realize that, but if a player does it, they can get penalized. They're saying if a goalie does it, which goalies are the ones that do it most often because they're pushing off of those posts. Do you guys think that they should be penalized for dislodging the net?
And it's only for during pressure situations. So then you're also leaving the judgment again in the refs, which is currently, even if it is kicked off, they can still say it's still a goal, even if the net is not on the moorings because it has crossed the line. I was just watching a game the other night and that happened. The goal was kicked off, was a little bit sideways, but the goal had crossed right as it was getting kicked off, and they said good goal.
As a goalie, I have used the post to get across the crease just to give me that extra, and the post hasn't come off, and there are times where it does come off. I don't know that goalies intentionally pushing off on a post is to dislodge it. At least for me. I
was gonna say I've seen videos where it's quite obvious.
I have seen videos. Actually, Bob Borowski has done it plenty of times in his career where he has kicked the post off. So it's but like Schooley said, it's subjective to the referee or to the official who's watching it.
Because it's only going to be a penalty for pressure situations.
Yeah.
So. Guess how many times it happened last season?
For the Lightning or in general?
No, for NHL goalies.
How many times?
102.
Okay. And how many games?
That's a lot of penalties for goalies. Yeah, I don't know if they would all qualify, but that's a high number.
Well, I think of how many games are really that's one game a team, and then three goals? I mean, 3 penalties a team.
Yeah, it's not.
It's a lot. It seems high. All right, getting.
I was going to say Igor also. Yeah, Shesterkin is very good at kicking that net off.
Is.
Incoming goalies get a warm up if the starter has been pulled by a concussion spotter, and if a goalie loses his mask and play is stopped for that to result in an offensive zone draw for the other team. So that's two things, really, right?
And the offensive team gets to choose which side, regardless of where the puck was, right?
Yeah. So the first thing is you got to swap goalies, and they specifically said because for concussion reasons, then, which is weird. Why would you just limit it to that, right? But
Here, the one I'm seeing says for any if a starting goalie gets injured and needs to be replaced mid-game, the backup will get time to warm up properly instead of just being thrown into the game. This will not apply to goalie being pulled for a poor game. So
for
here
I guess for
any
injury.
my article, which is ESPN by the way, says concussion spotter pulled the person, but you're basically saying for any goalie injury, they're going to allow incoming goalies to have a warm-up session similar to like a bullpen pitcher comes in and they get their warm-ups. So I don't know if I love this, but it does kind of seem fair to warm up the goalie a little bit. And if it's
they do take warm-ups and they're in the net for warm-ups. I mean, I haven't really seen too many backups get injured coming in mid-game. So I don't know how much.
Well, you see a lot of backups come in the game and give up a goal right away.
Right. They do give up goal, but not really get injured or anything. So.
And what's the definition of warm up? Was it like 3 minutes of shots being as you get the skater on the ice? Like, what's the definition of him warming up?
Didn't get that, but that is on the table. And then if a goalie loses his mask, we've seen this several times with Vasi. Play is stopped. That happens today. And the result is a offensive zone draw for the other team. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's how it should be. Yeah. I don't even know what it is right now, but I think that's what it should be. All right, a couple more here. On a post-icing face-offs, the GM will like the offensive player to get a warning before being called for a violation. So right now, it's just the defensive player who gets the warning. I guess now the offensive player will. They're also proposing that when a player refuses to play a puck off of a high stick or hand pass, I think this one's a little bit more relevant, then the other team gets a face-off in the zone next to where the infraction occurs. For example, if it's in the defensive zone, the face-off would come in the neutral zone. So that's another kind of minor one. And then I thought this was a weird one. This last one.
Yeah, this one I don't get, and I don't think will pass.
All right. So they will more effectively enforce players sitting on the boards with their skates hanging over the ice waiting for a line change. And from what I heard, a official got injured this season or last season because there was a player just sitting on the boards, waiting to jump off with his legs hanging over and got cut by a skate blade. So I don't know if it's just about the officials, but they will receive a warning first. And if they do it again, then they get a bench minor. So kind of a weird one. I mean, I don't feel like I see a lot of players hanging over the bench. I feel like they switch pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But
I've seen where they put the one leg over the bench to get ready to jump on. Or I've seen where they also go to jump on it and then realize they're not going for the line switch and quickly jump back on the boards. So yeah, it says their feet hanging over that a rep was recently. But I think this one's stupid.
But
this season,
as you can see from Stephanie here, it ended the career of Kelly McCrimmon. So I think if it protects officials, that's what they'll probably do. Orozco's in the chat. Don't let him anywhere near a Lightning game, apparently.
Yeah.
If we want to win. And he's asking if we talk about Minnesota pulling their goalie in OT. If they got scored on, then no points. We did talk about that. You're late to the party, Orozco. We start at 9:03 sharp. All right. So yeah, those are your rule changes. Interesting note on this: no overtime changes on the list here, which is kind of what we've talked about earlier in the season. Is like, what were they going to do to save overtime? Since half of the overtimes are exciting, half are super boring. But apparently they were happy with the 70% of games that go to overtime and in overtime and not in the shootout. So they seem to be happy with what's going on over time, at least for now.
Yeah, I was shocked, or I'm wondering if we just haven't seen all of them that have been like, these are only the ones that was leaked, because I did see a list of some other things that could also be changed. So I'm wondering if this is just a partial list coming out.
Someone's asking about, Stephanie's asking about Tom Wilson. I didn't see what Tom Wilson did.
He took his stick to the damn neck of the Toronto player. He tried
one-handed baseball swing.
He tried decapitating him.
But then he tried to cover it up by like grabbing him and holding him up and be like, "Oh wow, I didn't mean that," but no,
right.
It's Wilson.
He could get the rest of the season. I think that'd be the max that he'll get. They won't take away the playoffs.
It would be his 6th suspension. That's a lot.
It's not his first offense.
No, and I think possibly by the time, I think what I seen was that he wasn't going to even try to appeal it, because there's a possibility they still make it in the playoffs. And if he appeals it, then the suspension can go into playoff games. So from what I hear, they don't want to. Yeah, he had a 20-game suspension that was reduced to 14 2 years ago. And that's what I think they're worried about. They're thinking if he gets this and they appeal it, they could lose them if they end up making it in the playoffs. Right now, they are a long shot to be making that playoffs, but we will see. They still can overtake the Islanders.
All right, we got to pause for a second here and talk about GTE Financial. Posted it today. You're running out of time. If you have not signed up for this VIP game day experience, you've got to do it by the end of March. It gets cut off at the end of March. And what can you win, you ask? I don't know. Maybe tickets to what might be a pivotal game, the last regular season game of the season versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. You'll be in the front row if you win this contest, and you'll be sitting right behind where Vassy is in the second period. I posted on my Instagram at Shootey Shoots pictures from the exact spot. Beautiful seats on the glass. Not only are you going to get those seats, you're going to get a stick from the best player in the NHL, signed Nikita Kucherov, and a bag of swag. So I have put in the chat the link. If you haven't signed up for that, what are you waiting for? Go sign up for that one now. It's always a great game. The last game of the season, it's like fan night usually. So go sign up for that. And then also, we will still be talking about the Bolts debit card for the next couple weeks. But guess what? They've sweetened the pot on the Bolts debit card. They're offering $100 if you sign up for the debit card. And they're also offering a 4-pack of tickets, which includes an exclusive skating event. I'm assuming at Amalie Arena. I hope it's not at TBSA Oldsmar. That's a little underwhelming. But I do think it's at Amalie Arena. So if you do go sign up for that card now, use the Bolt 100 code. That gets you that $100 in the 4-pack of tickets. So they've sweetened the pot for this Bolt card. And, not to mention, you're going to be the coolest cat in town. Like, imagine if I was at the JW Marriott and I, go to buy my tequila with the Bolts card sitting next to Vinny. Like, I'm pretty sure he'd be like, hey, like, what time do I come on your show immediately? Like, can we just go live now? Because that's a badass debit card. But
could you imagine if you had a half of it, a quarter of it, a third of it Lightning, a third of it Philly, a third of it Kings? He'd be like, oh, you're just stalking me now.
Well, there you go in the chat. You can go sign up for that. We'll be talking about that for the next couple of weeks, because you've got a couple more weeks to get that Bolts card. And then, John, when's this Rays podcast starting? I'm going to be at opening night, or opening day, in a week from today. So I want someone to talk about the Rays.
Our first live stream will be the 4th. It's going to be after the 7-game homestand to open the season against the Blue Jays and the Texas Rangers.
The World Series champs.
Yes.
Well, there you go. Enrasian is the name of the show. So make sure you follow John. And, Lightning season's not going to last forever, but baseball season does. So at least it starts soon.
It does.
So there you go. Let's take a look at where we're at in the standings, which is drastically different from last time we got together, boys. We're looking at the same top teams here, but the funny thing about this wild card race is it seems like besides Lightning, nobody wants to win it. So in typical Red Wings fashion, they are flailing right now. They are 3-7 in their last 10 games.
They beat the Islanders tonight, though.
Okay, they won tonight. Good for you, Red Wings. By the way, they have our number, so we can't talk too much smack.
I know. I'm updating. I'm currently updating everybody's magic numbers, and so I was just going through the scores, and Detroit versus Islanders. We kind of both wanted both of them to lose, but now we need Detroit to lose some more. That will definitely increase or decrease our winning numbers, our magic numbers by a lot.
Yeah, and I think that Detroit's probably the best of the bunch realistically in this group this season. The other thing I want to point out about this is let's look at that games played now. All of a sudden, I just messed with it. Remember, we were talking all season about how other teams had games in hand versus the Lightning. Well, not anymore. And here we are still in that first wild card spot. So compared to where we were a couple weeks ago, we're in really good shape right now to lock up this wild card spot. And not to talk too soon about it because it's kind of a pipe dream, but we're 7 points behind the Maple Leafs. So if we keep playing well, we could catch Toronto, but I do think we'll probably lock in that number 1 wild card spot, and it just kind of depends on who's behind up. But it's not done yet. If you look ahead at the schedule is pretty wild. Of course, we've got the road trip tonight. We've got a must win against the Sharks, and it's just a must win because they're the worst team in the league right now. You've got the Islanders. That's a head-to-head. Or I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead already. But you got LA. They always play us pretty well on Saturday night. And then we've got the Ducks on Sunday night. By the way, this Ducks game was going to be our third and final watch party of the regular season, but we moved that to April 13th. So I will put in the chat here once I look it up the link to the Facebook invite. By the way, that's what we go by to see how many people are going to be there, which means how much food we're going to have, how much beer we're going to have, all that stuff. So if you plan on joining us on April 13th in a couple weeks, make sure you RSVP on the Facebook, which I'll put on the chat here and in your podcast notes. But anyways, Ducks on Sunday night. And then we've got to round out March, Boston coming to town on Wednesday the 27th, and then a huge game against the Islanders on the 30th. That's one of those 4-point swing games. The Islanders are one of the teams that are right behind us. And then not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it is a Eastern Conference slobber knockle going into April. Man, it's going to come down to the wire, but we are in pole position right now. How are you guys feeling going into this final? What are we at? 15 games left?
Go ahead, John.
I don't actually have the schedule in front of me, but if we keep playing the way we're playing with the back checking, people are not standing around lately. They're moving, they're blocking passing lanes, and I'd like to see us go 10-5. I don't think we're going to win them all, but I think we're definitely playing at a higher level. We're more cognitive of our defensive positioning and getting the puck out of the zone. We're not getting stuck in cycles down in our defensive zone. So I think we're going to be fine.
2 weeks ago when we did the show and we did the schedule and we looked at the games ahead, we were worried about that Panthers game. We were worried about that Rangers game, especially the Rangers game coming off a couple of days off. They went 4 days off in between Philly and the Rangers. We talked about the Ranger game. We talked about the Panthers game. Then we talked about the Vegas and the Vegas flu that they tend to have when they're in Vegas. And they have just put a whooping on these teams. And I think this West Coast trip could not come at a better time. You have 3 weaker teams. I was watching the Kings Wild game last night, and the Kings just killed the Wild last night. Fleury ended up getting pulled mid-game because he was letting in so many goals from them. So that's going to be the one I think really that the Lightning are really going to have to focus on. That's going to be – is that part of the back-to-back, or is that back-to-back later on in this trip?
It's
Kings
the first game
and
of the
Ducks
back-to-back.
this weekend.
Yeah.
Back-to-back,
Saturday.
and Orozco's going to be at both games.
Oh,
no.
I think Vasi goes Kings, and I think JJ is going to be the Anaheim. And I think this couldn't come at a better time. I think it was a great time after those big Eastern Conference wins to get these Western Conference teams that even if we were to lose one, it's not a 4-point swing. I expect them to go. I think they'll go 3-0 on these West Coast teams, but even 2-1, I think we'll take it and get the hell out of that West Coast.
And we do have 2 games against the Maple Leafs.
Get closer to your mic.
We have 2 games against the Maple Leafs to finish the season, so that's 2 4-point swing, or a 4-point swing if we can pull those out.
I don't think there's any way when I'm doing the math and looking at numbers and everything else. I don't think there's going to be really that much to be able to catch Toronto. And
it's a huge stretch, yeah.
Yeah, and looking at Toronto's schedule, really it's going to be that wild card. Philly's going to have to worry about whether Washington or the Islanders take them out of that last place. Right now, our magic number is 24. We win tonight, goes to 22. We'd be tied with Detroit if we lost every game and Detroit ended up losing and winning the rest. Then we still hold the advantage on row. I'm sorry, if we both won out. We own the advantage on row if we win in regulation tonight as of right now. So that would put us ahead of them. But the 2 teams that we have to worry about behind us are Washington and the Islanders.
Yep. All right, John's got to jump soon, and we're probably not going to go all the way to 10:38, a minute before puck drop, but we want to get our predictions in now. So we'll start with you.
Vasi has just led the team out on warm-ups.
I figured Vasi was starting, and he's one of the questions. So we'll start with that question. How many saves does Vasi make tonight? John, lead us off.
We're playing a team that was a seller. I'll go 23.
I'm going to go 31.
31 for Schooley, and I'll go with 1. No, I'll play let's go 29 for me. Who scores first for the Bolts? Schooley, lead us off. First goal scorer.
Hagel.
Hagel?
Yeah.
John?
That was my pick, so I'll go Nick Paul.
Nick Paul. I'm riding the hot hand. Braden Point's going to score first. And then finally, the final score, Sharks versus Bolts. John, what you got?
I'm going to go 4-1 Tampa Bay.
Shooter, you go.
I'm going to go with, we'll go 3-1.
I'm going to go 3-0.
Oh, calling the shutout. Okay.
He's been playing good enough.
31 save shutout.
Now, Panthers are about to be shut out from the Preds, which sucks because that was part of my 10-game parlay. That would have paid me $500, but
Well, I already gave you some betting tips earlier, so you should take advantage of them. All right. Well, we'll post our predictions on Twitter at We the Thunder Pod, and I hope you guys want to share with what you guys think is going to happen. Who scores first for the Bolts? How many saves Vasi has in the final score for tonight? John, you got to run.
I do.
All right. Make sure you follow Enrasion. They're going to get started here pretty soon to take over for some pretty good raise.
Pervex playing tonight. Lilleberg in for Pervex.
Is there a reason for that?
No, I know they said he might have been a little tweaked after the last game.
Give him a rest. Let the rookie in there. Get some nice time.
A good game to do that. All right, guys, I got to run. Thank you for having me. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Go on.
Bolts. Yeah.
Adios. I've been meaning to mention for a couple weeks here, we want to put a link out there for a GoFundMe. Steve Mandingo, it's not how you pronounce his last name, but it's fun to say, has donated a lot of tickets to Lightning fans, a lot of his season tickets. So he had asked us a couple weeks ago to put out this GoFundMe for his buddy Steve Brown, who had a heart attack a couple months ago, and basically he needs stem cell therapy, which you can't do in the US. So it's super expensive to, take care of all the costs to go do that outside the country. He's only in his 40s and he has a whole family. I'm only in my 40s too. So I feel for Steve's friend, Steve. So if you have any kindness on your heart to donate to this GoFundMe, I'll put the link in the podcast notes. We'll post it tomorrow on Facebook and on Twitter. And, if you've ever been the recipient of Steve's tickets in section 112, only 6 or 7 rows up, do him a favor, help out his buddy. He's a very, very generous guy. So it's the least you can do is help out his good friend. And you might actually save the dude's life. So there you go. Check that out if you can tomorrow. We'll post it. What else you got on Twitter, Schoolie? What's happening?
I haven't seen no more updates. I was wondering if Jano was going to be in tonight because the early reports were the 3 skating pre-skate with everybody was Fleury, Perbix, and Jano. And we now know both Fleury and Perbix are not in tonight. So I'm wondering if Jano is also going to be scratched tonight. Well, let's see. Lilleberg in tonight. Nick Perbix is a scratch along with Fleury, Chafee, and Watson for the. So Perbix, Fleury, Chafee, and Watson are all scratches.
So Jano is in.
So the lines are Duclair, Point, Cooch, Hagel, Sorelli, Stammer, Isemont, Paul, Sheary, Jano, Glendening, and Mott.
Ooh, I got a hot bet tip for you. Isemont. He freaking tore it up when the Sharks came to Tampa earlier this season.
Oh, yeah. Hedman, Radish, Dahan, Chernak, Lilleberg, Dumba.
Put your bets on shots on goal and maybe a goal. Maybe a couple points for Mikey. Played really well. Which, by the way, that game against the Sharks, which was very early in the season, when the Sharks had way better players on the roster than they do today, was probably the worst NHL team I've ever seen in person. They looked so bad that game, and we weren't even playing that well, but we just dominated them. I think this game is going to be actually harder than that one because they got some young guys in the roster now. They know they're in last place. These guys are kind of fighting for their future in the NHL. So this is not going to be an easy game for the Bolts. On paper, it should be, but it's not going to be because these guys are going to battle us.
Yeah, they're not going to roll over, but I still don't think it's going to be that big of a hard-fought game for us.
It's the NHL, man. You never know.
Any given day, I know. Trust me.
Well, let's make it 5 in a row. Let's scare some teams going into the playoffs. That's what I want. Let's go on a little bit of a run here for these last. There's 14 games left.
Have you seen? So we talked about Duclair and how Duclair whether you believe it or not, has put a spark on this team. Have you seen that out of any other person that was traded this year? Any of the big names like Hannafin has not been what they thought he was going to be so far in Vegas.
I thought Hannafin looked good on Tuesday.
He looked good, but I think if you look at Vegas's fans, they're not liking that pickup.
But defense is not the problem in Vegas.
No.
They have a scoring problem in Vegas.
They picked up some of that too. Yeah, I mean, none of these trades have been so much of an impact so far yet that we have really seen them too much on other teams. If anybody knows of any other ones that's really going good, Tarasenko, I haven't really seen him that much out there.
As of today, we won the trade deadline.
Yeah,
for sure. But we're only 4 games past it, really. So the rest remains to be seen. But it's like what we talked about 2 weeks ago. If it's enough to get these guys a little bit of a spark to wake up this team, that's what they need. And that's what it's done so far. And to be able to get a guy who, like I said, I thought he was going to be a bottom 6 forward for us. And for him to be contributing and scoring is a huge difference from what we had. And then just that depth on defense, to have a veteran guy that, like I said earlier, doesn't have to play 20 minutes a game, plus 20 minutes a game, which is what he was playing in Arizona, just has to play 10, 15 solid minutes, which he's done. Great moves for very little. So I'll always defend JBB. I'll always have that argument of Yzerman's team, JBB's team, and I'll always stick with my argument of Yzerman wouldn't make that move that the Lightning needed to make at the trade deadline.
That's how I always feel about Dungy and Gruden. I thought Dungy made that team but could not put them over the edge. Gruden comes in and takes them over the edge. I think the same thing with JBB. Yzerman would get them there, but it was JBB who took them over the edge.
Yeah, and was Jeannot, except that Jeannot trade? I mean, nobody bats a 1,000, right? So, and that's yet to be seen. How Jeannot's had how many injuries since he's been here? Like, you can't really say that, oh, bad move, because he's gotten hurt, pretty seriously injured twice. You can't say, hey, that's a bad move by the GM, right?
And you don't know what they would have picked up with what they gave up. So you can't say it was a win or loss from that, because those are draft picks. So,
but these trades have been really good, and it'll be interesting to see if they try to keep a guy like Duclair, and what that means for other players currently on the roster. We'll wait for after the season ends to start the major speculation about what's going to happen with all that stuff. I hate to jump ahead.
So here's another question for you and for everybody listening. Expansion. It definitely looks like the NHL is going to expand. Do you like the idea of them expanding one team at a time like they did with Vegas and Seattle, or just do the double like they did back when Florida entered the league, back when Tampa entered the league? Because right now it looks like you got 2 front runners in Salt Lake City and for the 3rd time Atlanta, who are really putting committees out there, really getting the ownership going and everything else. And I think it's stupid that they would only take the one and not expand 2 at a time. Stop doing these odd amount of teams.
But that's a little rough on the teams in the current league that have to give up 2 players now.
Yeah, well,
the expansion draft.
Then change the rules.
I don't know. It's the whole expansion draft has been very, very heavily favored in the last couple of years towards these new teams. Think about when the Lightning joined the league, they had to eat crap for 10 years before they did anything notable. So they made it a little too easy for Vegas in the Kraken. And, those GMs did a really good job too. It wasn't just the expansion draft. They were wheeling and dealing players the whole time too. So you got to give them credit for that. But I would rather have one, because I think it just shakes up things too much when you add two teams and you got so many players. You got two teams from every team that's going to move now.
Yeah, but then if you have that, then don't you have some competition between those two? And then you can basically get them to take what players you want. Because if you got two different teams vying for your players, then, you could be like, well, we'll sweeten the deal and you give us, if it was a couple of years ago, Killorn, and just the same way that we got them to take Vegas to take Garrison.
Yeah, you would imagine Anthony Cirelli's on the top of that list of players that we are dangling out there,
yeah.
with a bunch of crap, saying, please take me. By the way, I like Anthony Cirelli. Maybe paid him a little too much, but I think he's a good player. He's not going to be a 40 goal scorer. That's not what he is. He's a defensive forward. He's really a third line center to me. So to pay a third line center what he's getting paid is probably a little too much. But I do like Anthony Cirelli, and he had an awesome goal the other night, shorthanded.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think. Honestly, I don't want any more expansion teams. I think the league's fine how it is. If we keep adding more teams, we're just going to have more bad players in the NHL. It should be the best of the best. And when you keep inflating it with all these teams and another roster 2 years later or the same year, then you're not going to have as good of a product on the ice. So Stop with the expansion. I know that's not going to happen.
No, and you also have Duclair returning to San Jose tonight. So you have both Isimont and Duclair returning.
Ooh, yeah, we should have said Duclair. He's definitely scoring tonight.
Stephanie called Duclair in the chat.
Good call, Stephanie. I mean, eventually he has to stop scoring, right?
Yeah. Plenty of love for Anthony Duclair in San Jose. Had an employee at SAP Center tell me she's rooting for the Bolts the rest of the way except for tonight, strictly because how kind Duclair was during his time with them. On their sign saying, we want you back. You're not getting them. So
they could in the offseason if he really liked it out in San Jose. He's pretty welcome to probably come back if they want him. But I'll tell you what, if he keeps scoring like he's scoring, he's going to maybe finally get himself a long-term contract somewhere, which I think he's earned. But, he was such a pest when he was in Florida. And I think, I'm right, mentioned this last show in the chat. I don't know if we put it on the screen, which I wonder what happened to him today. He might be asleep already. But he mentioned when Duclair came back from injury last season for the Panthers, that's when they got on their hot streak in the playoffs, and it took them all the way to the finals. So maybe he's the new Pat Maroon. We'll see. I guess he wasn't last year, but they lost.
Corey Perry.
Something about this guy who's obviously convinced you guys he's the difference in what's happening with this team, and I'm with you. There's nothing to not like about him so far as a Bolts fan.
And to see him interact with the team during warmups, it's really good too. Same with Dumba. They really fit in with this team. And it really you can see it during warmups. Their smiles. It is funny. It's funny that them two are Duclair and Dumba skate together a lot during warmups and joke around with each other. But then you see Duclair going around with some of the other guys, and it's really good just to see the way they're fitting in. And we've heard that from other players that have got traded here in the past, that they really felt welcomed and really part of the team right away. Even when on the block party, Hagel talked about that when he came into the team, not knowing anybody. and that he really felt welcomed into the team.
Well, I think I saw somewhere Duclair was roommates with Point in juniors.
Yeah. Yep.
No, they're familiar. And obviously, Kucherov's pretty familiar with Duclair's cross-checking. But hey, that's the kind of guy. These are the kind of guys you want on your team and not on the other team. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. Not necessarily getting on the scoring sheet with Dumba laying those big hits and Duclair being the pest that he is and adding the scoring that he can do now. So it's exciting. It's lit something under this team, and hopefully they can carry it into next season, into the playoff, or not next season, next month, and into the playoffs. And I'm here for it. Starting in San Jose in about 15 minutes, less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. It's this last couple weeks is going to be really a good time.
All right. By the way, if you're out there on Instagram watching, we're sorry. StreamYard doesn't show us your comments. So, hello, Instagram.
And if anybody is watching the NCAA tournament and had their bracket, you probably just lost on your bracket because Kentucky got beat.
Were they number 1 seed?
Yeah, they were up there. I don't know if they were number 1.
I refuse to watch any of this March Madness because USF should have been in the tournament and they were not. So
they totally got screwed out of it. They are in the NIT tournament. They were a 3rd seed. Okay. And they got the NIT tournament and
to beat UCF last night.
Huh?
They beat UCF last night.
Yeah. So
USF
teams did decline the NIT, which I wouldn't blame USF for doing it, but USF really needs the money from these games that are being held. So
they just need to go win that dang thing. All right. Let's you got anything else? I do have my favorite part of the show. I don't know if Colorado's playing right now, but I don't know that. So I'm just going to hold up my Nikita Kucherov plaque here and worship the NHL points leader once again. What do you have to say, Cooch?
Unreal. I think nobody else has done it before.
There you go. From the man himself, Nikita Kucherov. Hey, what are we going to get, another 4-point game tonight from Cooch? It's ridiculous if you just go look at his stats. What he puts up is unbelievable.
Colorado's off tonight. And I think Stephanie, tell me if I'm wrong, you posted in Thunderbolts. I think if he gets a 4-point game tonight, he is tied for the fourth least amount of games to reach 120 points in only 62 games or whatever. He gets tied for 4th. But I think it's 4 points tonight that he needs to be to make that.
Which I think he's gotten 4 points in 7 or something games this season.
Yeah.
So it's very realistic that this can happen. It's just ridiculous. How the thing about Cooch that gets me is he's up there with McDavid and obviously McKinnon, and you go watch these guys play and they look like they're freaking trying their hardest. They're flying out there. McKinnon's so good at having he's so quick and he just does those quick stops and then he'll just start going again and just blows right by people. And then you watch Nikita Kucherov, and it's like his whole game's in slow motion, and he still just does it, whatever he wants out there. So it's just unbelievable to watch this guy. Cooch, one more comment from Cooch. Unbelievable. That's like I said, it's fun to watch. So hopefully this team can make the most out of the rest of the season and get this guy the Hart Trophy he deserves, which I don't think he's going to get no matter what. But
no, and I think Cooch, what differentiates Cooch with McKinnon and McDavid and Matthews is that Cooch isn't looking for the goal. He's not looking for the assist. He's just looking to win the game. So he don't care if he's that first assist, that second assist, or even if there was a 4th assist on a play. that he would have gotten. He just wants someone to score and wants the back of the net, to where you see some players who it's automatic, give it to McDavid, automatic, give it to McKinnon, automatic, give it to Matthews, and it's goal first. Cooch, it isn't. Cooch is find it to the best man open or around the horn there to get it to somebody that's going to be open to score that goal.
Yeah, and Stephanie says it right here. If he wins, it's going to be because this massive gap. And it's not like we don't have other good players on this team, right? I'm pretty sure it's Hagel, or it might be Point at this point, right behind him, with Point heating up lately. But yeah, I mean, there's no other team that's got that gap. It's unreal. So let's enjoy it, because it's just fun to watch. He just seems to be getting better. All right, let's get out of here. We've got about 15 minutes now till the puck drops. 10:39 is when it should drop out in San Jose. I'm going to try to watch the whole game. I know you're not, School. You're going to be asleep by the second period, aren't you?
No, I don't have to be in until I don't work Dunkin' Donuts no more. It's
you have to be in early, huh?
It's pizza time, so I don't have to go in until 2:00 tomorrow. So I will be out watching this game.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're out there, I will be live tweeting the game until I fall asleep. And I'm, like I said, I'm going to try to watch the whole game for sure at We the Thunder Pod, which Vinny also has access to this We the Thunder Pod account. So if you don't follow it, you should follow it if you want to see Vinny on the show with us, because that's probably our only chance if we get some more followers. Anyway, it's good to be back. We will be back next Wednesday night. Time to be determined. Another reason to follow at We the Thunder Pod. But we will be back next Wednesday night to talk about what's happened on the rest of this West Coast road trip. And oh wait, do we have a game on Wednesday?
We have a game.
We will not be back on Wednesday night. And
Bruins.
Thursday night, I'll be at the Rays game. Shoot. Stay tuned. We'll let you know when we're back on sometime next week, maybe Friday. We'll figure it out.
That's Good Friday.
We'll put it on the Facebook. You'll know where to find us. Hey, if you put that little notification thing on, I think it shoots you a little message when we go live. That's probably the best thing to do.
By the way, if anybody's reading these little messages, Little Caesars has these new things called puffs, and they are amazing. But there is a company-wide contest from all Little Caesars across the U.S. So if you're going to buy some, come to my store and come down to Sarasota. I'll hook you up with a free order of them as long as you buy another order, because there is a contest going on. Whatever store can sell the most. Or just send me $4 and I'll just ring up some orders for you and eat them for you. But they are amazing. You can get them pepperoni and cheese. And actually, if you go down to Puerto Rico, they have them guava. They have guava ones. And hopefully when we go to Vegas next month, they're going to hopefully tell us that there's going to be some dessert ones. There's been hinted at. So,
oh, hell yeah.
Listen, me and my boss just bought some pulled pork, barbecued pork, to make our own tomorrow night and see how they are in there. So we've played with these now for the last couple of weeks.
All right, enough promoting your Detroit-based Red Wings business.
Hey, listen, we're going to do a group trip there next year. So,
I'm in for that.
Little Caesars Arena next year, Thunderbolts road trip, 2022, 23, or 23, 20. What year are we in? 24, 25 season.
No idea.
No, either.
All right, let's go Bolts. Let's beat the Sharks tonight and wrap up this road trip this weekend with a couple more wins. Hey, maybe they come back on like a 6-game winning streak. We'll see. Or a 7-game winning streak. We'll see. We'll be here next week. Until then, this has been We the Thunder. Don't forget to be the Thunder.
That's it?